Alright team, welcome to another episode of the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hamilton, delighted to be with you as always for an episode today on my 3 tips to help you manage your budget more effectively at work. A lot of people find this, particularly if they're new managers, they find this very intimidating, this prospect of managing a budget that's quite possibly in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even sometimes north of $1 million. It is money that a lot of the time new managers have never really seen before sitting in there on a screen in an account balance, and it can be quite intimidating to be charged with this responsibility of managing what seems to be such a large sum of money. But you will actually find as your career progresses that budgets in the hundreds of thousands of dollars are actually quite normal, and in actual fact the more you progress, the more money you will end up managing, quite possibly in the millions of dollars if you get to a senior enough level. But the point of this episode is you can learn to manage it really well. There are just a few things you need to focus on. What I am going to do, as we often do, is help set the scene with a bit of an example from the real world about a manager who managed a budget really well to pull a company back from the brink, and that company was Ford. The gentleman's name is Alan Mulally. So let's learn about how Alan pulled Ford back from the brink through some really intelligent budget management, and then we'll get into the crux of the episode. Here we go. The Man Who Saved Ford, a story of budgeting brilliance. In 2006, Ford Motor Company was teetering on the edge of collapse. The once proud automaker was drowning in losses, weighed down by too many brands, inefficient operations, and cars that just didn't excite customers anymore. As the company stumbled towards what seemed like inevitable bankruptcy, the board made a bold move. They hired Alan Mulally, a former Boeing executive, as the CEO of Ford. Alan wasn't a flashy choice. He wasn't even from the auto world. But what he did bring was something Ford desperately needed, and that was discipline, clarity, and a sharp eye for managing budgets. From the moment he stepped into Ford's headquarters in Dearborn, Michigan, Alan saw the problem clearly. The company was bloated, fragmented, and lacking a unified direction. So he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. His first major move was something he called the One Ford strategy. Instead of letting regional teams operate like independent companies with their own designs, supply chains and strategies, Alan unified them under one global vision. And that simple step slashed redundancies and created massive cost savings. But that was only the beginning. Every Thursday morning, the top executives gathered in a glass-walled conference room for what Mulally called the business plan review. And unlike the secretive closed-door meetings of the past, these sessions demanded complete transparency. Leaders had to report their numbers honestly. No more hiding bad news under a pile of spreadsheets, red, yellow or green indicators lit up on the dashboards. Red meant trouble, and Mulally didn't punish it. He saw it as a chance to fix problems early. And this cultural shift was revolutionary. Suddenly, managers were paying close attention to every dollar, and Ford's budget became a living, breathing roadmap to recovery. But then came the masterstroke. Alan mortgaged everything, even the iconic blue oval logo. In 2006, long before the financial crisis struck, he secured $23 billion in financing. People thought he was crazy, but when 2008 arrived and the auto industry collapsed, Ford had cash. While General Motors and Chrysler went begging to the government for bailouts, Ford stood tall, solvent, and proud. Mulally didn't stop there. He trimmed the fat by selling off unprofitable brands like Volvo, Jaguar, and Land Rover. He focused Ford's energy on making fewer vehicles, but ones that customers actually wanted, fuel-efficient, high-quality, and desirable. It was a back-to-basic strategy grounded in smart budgeting and clear priorities. By 2009, Ford was profitable again. Its stock price had climbed, its reputation soared, and it all came down to one thing, and that was a leader who knew how to manage a budget, inspire accountability, and focus on what truly mattered. Alan Mulally didn't just save Ford, he showed the world that financial discipline, smart planning, and transparency could could bring even a giant back from the brink. And that sets the scene really nicely for the discussion that I want to have with you all today. Now, look, we're not all going to be managing companies that might be looking for $23 billion in finance. That, it's fair to say, is at the upper end of the scale when it comes to finances. But the reality is that even if you're charged with managing a budget that is in the tens of thousands of dollars, it doesn't matter. It's still really important that we're across our numbers as the manager responsible for looking after that budget, because so many things feed off it, don't they? If we are over budget, it usually means that we have to claw back some cost savings elsewhere, which can create headaches, whether that's from employee salaries, i.e. we can't go out and hire the people that we want, or worst case scenario, we need to let people go, to, hey, we can't afford that piece of equipment that we really need because we overspent in the last few months or the years before. Either way, poor budget management doesn't bode well for the organisation or you as an individual who's charged with being responsible for the numbers. So there are 3 tips that I'm going to send your way today, which I think are going to help you out a great deal. And this is really aimed as a refresher for existing managers who might be feeling that they don't have a good handle on this. And it's also aimed at those of you who are doing this perhaps for the first time and are a little intimidated at the prospect of managing perhaps a pot of money that you are not used to seeing. Maybe it's a little bigger than you are used to seeing. But the reality is, regardless of the sum of money, the techniques and the concepts remain exactly the same. Don't be intimidated by the number. It's just a number. It all works the same. So tip number 1, what I want you to do is I want you to become best friends with your finance department. It might be a team of 1 or 2, or it might be a team of, you could have 50, depending on the size of the company. But what I want you to do as the newly installed budget manager is I want you to get the most thorough understanding that you possibly can. And what that means is becoming really good friends with your finance team, whoever they are. All right, you need to work hand in glove with these people. And what that means is, if you don't feel, or perhaps you don't know, the frequency with which you're supposed to be provided updates on the current budget position, i.e. how much have we spent for June, for example, I want you to find that out as the first port of call. If the updates are any less frequent than monthly, I want you to change that. Increase the frequency of updates, and your finance team will usually be more than happy to work with you on this because it shows that you take it seriously and you care. So I want you to establish a precedent whereby you are provided with a monthly budget snapshot. If that's in the form of an Excel spreadsheet, that's absolutely fine. Or if it's in the form of, whatever finance system you and your company work with, that's also fine. I just want you to have a really good understanding monthly of where the numbers currently sit. As I said, ask the finance team for assistance. They love a manager, at least in my experience, who is on top of their financials because it directly benefits them. Oftentimes the finance team are struggling to get things closed off and sorted out for end of financial year, and everything that you do in the lead up to that ultimately bodes well for them. So they love a manager who understands the income, the outgoings, the expenses, and who is just on top of that. Okay, so don't be afraid. Approach them, explain to them that you want to be in a better position to manage the budget, and so you need monthly budget snapshots if that wouldn't be too much trouble, and usually it's not. Once you have that in your inbox, let's work with June. You've got a update for June. I want you to open that up and I want you to drill into the nature of those expenses. Is it clear to you? And if it's not clear to you, that's a red flag. We don't just want to see outgoings and income. We want to understand where that money is going and where that money is coming from. Now, depending on the size and maturity of the organization that you work for, this could either be something that is well-established practice and there's cost codes listed for everything that is coming in and going out and invoices attached to those, or it could be completely the other way and it's very ambiguous as to what that money is going out for? Who are we making payment to? Who's paying us? We need to sort that out. So I want you to drill into the nature of the expenses and make sure it's clear to you. If it's not, why not? Make it your business to find out. As the old saying goes, you cannot manage what you can't measure. We need to understand where our money's coming from and where it's going. All right, so that's the first thing. Again, work with your finance team, ask questions if you're not sure. We must understand where it's going and what is coming in. Now, after 6 months of this, 6 months to a year, and it is going to take that long because obviously some billing cycles are annual, that's normal. Some are monthly, it just depends. To build a full snapshot and to have a really good understanding of budget patterns, it's going to take about 6 to 12 months. All right, so the first little bit is a familiarization stage. But after 12 months, you should have a really good idea and a good level of familiarity with respect to budget patterns. All right, things that look out of place will be easier for you to detect after you've managed a budget for the first year. A word of encouragement, it's completely normal to have a bit of time to get your head around things, to maybe be surprised by a couple of expenses here and there because you're new to it. All right. But if you drill into it and really make an effort to understand the expenses and the income, you're already making a better start than most people just by making the effort. So understand that it will take a little bit of time to get the full nuance, the full picture of these budget patterns. Second tip is to categorize expenses. We touched on this just a little bit, but let's delve into it a bit more thoroughly. Ideally, you need to have cost codes for each and every transaction, regardless of its income or if it's an expense. Because that identifies what the expense is for. I made the observation that you can't manage what you can't measure. Well, if you can't tell what an expense is related to, how can you manage it? It's all well and good going, okay, well, here we've got an expense item here for $10,000, but if you don't have any idea what it's for, then it's very, very difficult to ascertain whether we should have paid that amount, whether we're being overcharged, and in general, just to exercise good financial hygiene because you have no visibility. So we need to know whether it's for catering, equipment, stationery, staff wages, so on and so forth. There's many different categories. So I want you to understand cost codes. I want you to be very familiar. You should have a reference document from your finance team which gives you a clear guide as to what each cost code represents. Is it stationery? Is it equipment? Is it a service that you're paying for? Is it catering? Your finance team, certainly if your organization is anywhere close to being a mature one, should have all of that information. So request that reference document. It could be simply an Excel spreadsheet. It should have a list of cost codes and what those cost codes pertain to. And that information should be against the income and the expenditure that you're seeing in your monthly budget update. So if it's not set up that way, do the work with your finance team and work with them to clear it up. To build off that even more, we really shouldn't, if we're interested in best practice approaches, we shouldn't stop at the assigning of cost codes to income and expenditure against our budget update spreadsheet. We should also easily be able to navigate to the invoices and financial documentation that pertains to those transactions that you see. They should be stored and easily accessible against each and every line on that budget report. Whether it's income or expenditure, you should be able to easily find the documentation that pertains to that expense or to that income. And if your head is blowing up right now and you're going, oh my God, my organization is not set up at all like this, well, unfortunately, it sounds like you've got a lot of work to do. You might be a small business. You might be a one-person show trying to organize all of this stuff on your own. Well, this is an indication as to what good looks like. But if you're in a mature organization, a big company, this should be standard, common practice. All right, so I want you to be empowered with the availability of this information to go and conduct monthly audits, just for your own sanity and your own peace of mind, on this income and on this expenditure, just to make sure you don't see anything that is out of place. And to do that, not only do you need cost codes, but you need the invoices. And you need the documentation telling you where that money's gone to, what it was for, and of course, what it's come in from and for also. Now, tip number 3, and this is important because we're all about continuous improvement here. Review and adjust your budget allocation. So in addition to our monthly reviews, I want you to sit down with yourself and the leadership team, if relevant, at the end of every year, and I want you to review your expenditure for the year. Did you spend way too much on employee travel, for example? Now, it might have been necessary, but if it was people jetting off to conferences multiple times a year, maybe we need to pull that back a little bit and reallocate those funds elsewhere. Maybe you spent way too much on catering. That's quite easy to do as well. Maybe you've had your ear close to the ground and you and the leadership team are aware that you've got some imminent equipment or facilities upgrades that need to take place in the coming year. And so maybe you could have a look at areas where you think you've spent a bit too much over the year, and you could reallocate those funds for next year's budget into those equipment or facilities upgrade fields. And then make an announcement to the organisation that you're looking to pull back on employee conference attendance and travel in the upcoming financial year, and that all travel needs to be pre-approved as a result. That's an example of intelligent budget management and reallocation of existing funds. Now, the other thing that we need to understand is the flow-on effects of good budget management and poor budget management. If you know what your expenses are, then you know what your income must be. And this is why I say don't be intimidated by these big numbers. It's just a number. It's actually no different from managing your household budget. You go to work, you earn a paycheck, and ideally, you need to spend less than the money you make. You need to be able to pay the bills. You need to be able to pay the mortgage. And if you want to save a little and be in a financially healthy position, you need to have a really good snapshot of what your monthly expenditure looks like, so that you don't go and blow hundreds of dollars on new clothes or Uber Eats or other fun items and get caught out. So visibility is absolutely everything. And it's exactly the same principle at home and when you're at work, managing a budget, or even if you're managing your own business. The principles are identical. And this is another topic that we could flow onto and do a whole separate episode about, but it also enables you to correctly understand what your pricing needs to be set at. Now, that's a deeper topic. We go into supply agreements, so on and so forth. We won't dig that deep today. But understanding what your expenses are and what your income must be is one component that you can use to help you determine what the price of your goods and services need to be set at. So it really is a foundational piece of the puzzle that you as a manager must understand. Don't be intimidated, guys. I hope that helps. Keep it simple. It's just numbers coming in and numbers going out. And if you're having a good, thorough understanding of where the money's going to and where it's coming from, and you understand what that looks like monthly, as opposed to reviewing it, twice a year and getting a big shock and having all this work on your plate to figure out what this expenditure is related to, you will be able to proceed with confidence. And that is really important. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. I hope that helps. What I will do firstly is encourage you to subscribe to the show. I know from having a look at the analytics that we do have a few of you who listen to the show but aren't yet subscribed on the podcast platform. So if you get value from the show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, and that does wonders for little podcasts like this. And the second thing, guys, as I have been saying pretty regularly, please tell a friend. If you're getting value from this show and you think it's really helpful, why not spread the word and see if we can together improve the standard of leadership globally. Until next time, crew, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you later.